Hi everybody, and welcome to Baking from a Social Distance, episode 2, where we'll be making some really fun fairy buns. So with these fairy buns, we decided to decorate them to a special theme, but you guys can do whatever you want with yours. You can put whatever color icing you choose. Feel free to even mix the icing to make different colors if you wish. And be sure to listen out for a few of the quiz questions at the end, so be sure to listen carefully because I'll be asking you a couple of quiz questions to test your knowledge and your listening skills. Enjoy! For this recipe you will need the following ingredients: 115 grams of plain flour, 40 grams of cocoa powder, 175 grams of caster sugar, 175 grams of butter, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 2 eggs. Ask a grown-up to preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius. Now you're going to line your baking tray with cupcake wrappers. If you don't have cupcake wrappers at home, you can simply use some melted butter or some grease-proof paper, just so your cupcakes don't stick to the bottom of your baking pan. Now weigh your butter. You'll need 175 grams. And remember to leave your butter out of the fridge for a bit so that it can soften. Now weigh your cocoa powder. You'll need 40 grams of this. Place a sieve over your mixing bowl and bit by bit pour in your cocoa powder. Then sift the powder through the sieve so that the cocoa powder is lovely and fine. There should be no chunks or little pebbles in your cocoa powder. Pour in some hot water with your cocoa powder and mix it into a thick paste. Remember, the paste should be nice and thick. It shouldn't be thin or runny. And I would recommend asking a grown-up to help you with this because you'll be using hot or boiling water. So your paste should look like some chocolate mud, so there should be no pebbles or rocks lying around in it. Now you're going to measure out your flour just as you did for your cocoa powder, and using the same sieve, you're going to sift your flour into your mixing bowl, bit by bit, so that it's lovely and fine like snow. Still using your sieve, add your caster sugar bit by bit, shaking the sieve to make sure that the sugar granules get through. Dump in a teaspoon of baking powder. Remember, baking powder is that really special ingredient that helps your baked goods to grow in the oven. So here's a little fun fact about baking powder. Why do we need it? Well, baking powder helps your cake or loaf to rise in the oven. It's a special kind of magical powder that makes your baked goods get bigger as they cook. Without it, you would only have a flat pancake or a pool of batter at the bottom of your loaf tin. Now that all your dry ingredients, that's your cocoa powder, your baking powder, your sugar, and your flour, are all in the same mixing bowl, you're going to mix them together. One by one, crack your eggs over your mixing bowl and pour them into your batter. Make sure you don't get any shells in your mixture. So if you've ever wondered why do we put eggs in our baked goods, well, eggs are really important. They help to bind the ingredients together and to make the batter really strong so that your baked item doesn't fall apart in the oven. Now add your butter. Remember, your butter should be softened before you add it to your mix. Grab your whisk and whisk all the ingredients, dry and wet, together until they're well combined. Remember not to overmix your batter. If you overmix, then the quality of your fairy bun might not be as good as you'd hoped. Right, so now you have your batter, and the final step is to spoon the mix into the cupcake wrappers really carefully. Remember to leave a small space between the top of the batter and the top of the cupcake wrapper, because remember, the baking powder that you added earlier is going to make your cupcakes grow. So go get your grown-up helper again and ask them to help you put your fairy buns in the oven at 200 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. So now that your buns are baking away in the oven, it's time to prepare your icing. Add 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk or heavy cream to 1 cup of icing sugar. Remember to use your sieve to sift your icing sugar into the bowl so that it's really fine, like snow. Now add half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So here comes the really fun part. So now you're going to choose a color for your icing. We chose blue because our theme is frozen, but you can choose any color you like. You can even mix colors. For example, red and yellow will make orange, and blue and red will make purple. Food coloring is really messy, so make sure you wear gloves and put down some paper or towel or plastic onto the surface so that you don't mess too much. So all you do is take a cupful of your food coloring and dump it into your icing. And then slowly use a whisk to mix it round and round, and you'll see all the colors blending. It's like magic. And voila! Here's our finished product, some lovely frozen themed buns. So we decided to do frozen, and we made cake toppers using frozen stickers that we found in one of the sticker books, and we put them on cardboard, cut them out, and then placed them into our buns. So you can see there's blue for the frozen theme and a little bit of icing sugar on top for snow. Which one is your favorite? So remember I said I'd be asking you a couple of quiz questions, so here they are. Do you remember what the eggs are for in our fairy buns? A, to make the buns taste more like chocolate. B, to help keep the batter strong so that it doesn't fall apart. Or C, to help the batter to rise in the oven. If you said B, that the eggs help the batter to be strong so that it doesn't fall apart, you'd be right. That's exactly what eggs are for. Do you remember what the baking powder is for? Remember that little white teaspoon of powder that we put in? A, it makes the buns really soft. B, it stops the buns from burning in the oven. Or C, it helps the buns to rise in the oven. So which one is it? If you remember that baking powder is a special ingredient that helps the buns to rise in the oven, you're absolutely right. It's a really important part of baking. At what temperature did we bake the buns? Was it 170 degrees? Was it 180 degrees? Or was it a higher 200 degrees Celsius? Yep, the buns like the heat. If you said 200 degrees Celsius, you're absolutely right. Now to test your memory. Can you name all of the dry ingredients that we used in this recipe? Here are some that I could think of. Baking powder, caster sugar, flour, cocoa, and icing sugar. If you said any of those, you're absolutely correct. Those are the dry ingredients. Now, one last challenge. Can you name all of the wet ingredients that we used in this recipe? If you said any of these, bravo! We used eggs, butter, vanilla extract, and milk for our wet ingredients. Thanks for joining me for episode 2 of Baking from a Social Distance. I really enjoyed making these frozen themed fairy buns, and I really hope you did too. And I'd really like to see what you did. Did you choose a different theme for your buns? How did you find the quizzes? Did you get most of them right? I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.